Hello everybody and welcome. Before we begin, we have Professor Banerjee who's going to speak to us just for a few moments about an international study abroad opportunity.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Professor Banerjee Vitis in the Business Department, and I teach Human Resource Management, I teach Intro to Business, I teach Professional Development, Salesmanship. So today I am here to talk about a study abroad program that I'm leading to Spain and Portugal. So there is two of us, Professor Jory Zarin, she's in the Student Development Instruction Department, and I am, so the two of us, we are leading this program, and we are going to visit Spain and Portugal, 2 countries, 3 cities. We are going to go to Lisbon, Seville, and Madrid. This is going to be in summer A of 2018. The dates are May 18th to the 26th. I have some flyers here. You're welcome to take them. And there are 5 classes, so you have to take only one of them. So you have 5 choices basically. 2 of them are in the business department. One is IDS 2930. It's an independent study. It's called Business and HR, 3 credits. Another one is IDS 4930 called Special Topics Human Resource Management. That's also 3 credits. So if you take the 2930, it counts towards the AS degree. If you take 4930, it counts towards the BAS degree. Other than that, there is also those student development classes, Life and Career Development, SLS 1301, then Career Development in the Global Workplace, SLS 2352, and then there is a Special Topics, SLS 2930, which is a 1 credit class. So out of the 5, 4 of them are 3 credits and 1 of them is 1 credit. So if you have financial aid, the financial aid will pay for the class. We are going to go to these places. We are going to, of course, visit the cities. We are going to go to the historical sites over there. We are going to go to the museums, cathedrals, churches. We are going to see the culture there. But because this trip is business focused, we'll be visiting 2 businesses over there. And we will be talking to the management there, specifically management who deal with career development, HR, so how they recruit employees, how they hire, how they train, especially in the context in Europe right now, there's a big influx of refugees from other countries, so you want to talk to them about how they deal with all that, with the acculturation, the cross-cultural training and things. The other business visit will most likely be at a multinational corporation who hire expatriates, U.S. nationals. So we want to ask them, how they get U.S. citizens to acclimatize there to the work culture, because everywhere work culture is different, and so how they conduct meetings, how they write emails, how they respond to emails, how they greet each other, how they shake hands. There are different nuances in every culture, right? Spain has like a siesta time during the afternoon, so they have long lunch breaks, and this different culture, and we learn about that. So pre-departure, we'll have some activities where you will learn a little bit of the language. Now we are partnering with a company called EF Study Tours. They do these tours with universities and colleges taking students. So taking students means that they arrange for the airline tickets, they arrange for the hotels, they arrange for the meals and the tour buses, and the 3 cities that we'll be going to, they will take us. So there will be a 1 full-time person from that company with us who knows the language and who is going to guide us through the whole thing. That is how it's going to work, and the cost of the trip, that includes the airfare, hotel, food, visits to all these 3 cities, and transportation within the city, going to the businesses, everything, the cost of it is 3580. And the deadline to, register is February 2018. That is when, it's the absolute hard deadline, but there's a payment plan for all this. So if you sign up by the end of this month, straight away you get $100 discount, and it becomes 3480. And actually, if you signed up by today, then there will be a $200 discount. I'm a little delayed in coming and making this presentation with the hurricane and everything. That company also, they delayed everything, and we got delayed, and so anyway, so by today, the price was going to be 3380, October 17. So if you go, today's not going to really work, but by October 31st, you still get $100 discount. The process itself, where to apply, which website and everything, you have to contact our International Education Coordinator, Anita Badwar. She's in A building, 213 is her room number. My office is in the A building, 007, downstairs. She's upstairs from me. And all that is given here. The reason I'm saying to go to her first is because she has all the scholarship information. So there are scholarships to support students, and there's a process for that. But if you go to her this week, she will tell you, she'll start you off with the process, because that will help a lot with this cost. So there are criteria for scholarships. There's a $2,100 scholarship. There's a $1,200 scholarship. So there's not one. I mean, there are two scholarships, but multiple of them. So you need to go talk to her if you're interested. So that's about it.
Thank you so much.
Wants the flyer?
I do.
Anyone has any questions?
And if you even want to just leave a pile.
Yeah.
I'll leave some here. Thank you for sharing that information with us.
Thank you for your time. I hope you'll consider signing up. You're going to have fun. And the thing with study abroad is it looks great on your resume when you apply for jobs if you have international experience. And in this country too, we work with a lot of diversity in the workforce. We work with people from different ethnicities and backgrounds and cultures, so that kind of experience is great to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, so again, welcome to what is our second exam test review. As I was saying earlier, I really feel like it's the first day of school and I'm meeting y'all for the first time. It feels like it's been a long time since we've been together. Since that time, we've obviously had our first exam and have had 2 assignments. So I really feel like we kind of disconnected a little bit, but the hurricane did that to us. So in any event, any questions for me about the first exam before I launch into the review for the second exam? General questions, topical questions. Okay. What I think I put out an announcement or said in the first class, if anybody wants to come talk to me about their exam results, I will be happy to do so. I meet students either before or after these test exam sessions by these review sessions by appointment if they want to sit down and talk to me about their exam. And very often when I do that with students, I see a pattern in areas, just in gaps or deficiencies or areas that they need to focus on. So I'm happy to do that. If you would like, just please contact me to make an appointment. The second exam is going to be in pretty much exactly the same format that the first one was, about 50 questions, true, false, multiple choice. The difference, of course, is the fact that there isn't as much material. I think we're only talking 3 lectures, 4 lectures, okay. And so the volume of material is less, but I do think the material is more complex than it was for the first exam. So that's sort of the balance, I think, between the first and the second exam. You're going to see an increase in my famous and beloved analytical reasoning questions. Did any of you pick up on some of those in that first exam? Do you see kind of did you get a sense of what I was talking about with analytical questions versus straight up regurgitation? Okay, so it's good. That's good if you start to pick those up. You will see more of those. Obviously, I think those are more difficult, but that's where we really get into the meat and the heart of critical thinking, and you know that I love that. So, but I do think that's really what makes you better students and ultimately college graduates at the end of the day. So, all right. Let's start then with talking about some very general concepts that I hope sew together several of these lectures that we've had on business entities. I want to talk generally about the concept of liability, because through all of these lectures and through lectures that are going to be in the last third of the class, I use the term liability in two very different ways, but in ways both that need to be understood independently and how they gel together. Okay. Liability basically means responsibility. Liability means responsibility. It means you are responsible, a business is responsible for something. What are the two ways in which a business can be liable?
Jointly and severally?
That's actually taking it up a next level. But yes, you're right, joint and several liability actually comes in with partnerships in a really significant way. And we'll talk about what joint and several liability looks like. But this is kind of in a broader sense. I mean, the first kind of liability that we have is contractual liability. If you sign a contract, the signing of that contract creates liability. Before you go and buy a car, the day before you go to buy a car and sign a contract to buy a car, do you owe the bank money for the car? No. Okay? The liability is created by the fact that you signed the contract. The contract creates the liability. The contract creates the responsibility. Now you have a responsibility to pay on this promissory note a certain amount a month on a monthly basis on time. Okay? Liability, responsibility was created by that contract. So debts and obligations of a business, oftentimes memorialized by a contract, are examples of contractual liability that businesses can have. Promissory notes, debt, obligations, leases, equipment purchases, things like that, contractual responsibilities, rent, all those types of things are examples of contractual liability that a business can have. The other type of liability that exists is liability that a business can have for harm or financial loss caused to others by a result of the business's action or inaction. Okay? Just to repeat that. Liability can be the harm or financial loss that a business is responsible for that is a result of the business's action or inaction. Classic example of this, a semi-tractor trailer company, right? An employee driving a semi-tractor trailer plows into a passenger vehicle on I-75. Let's say the driver was distracted, the semi-tractor trailer driver was texting. That semi-tractor trailer company is now liable for the property damage, medical costs, injuries, et cetera, that were sustained by the individuals that were hurt in that crash. Up until the time that semi-tractor trailer plowed into the passenger vehicle, did they owe anything to that driver down I-75? No, not a penny, stranger. Okay. But once that business was negligent, by the acts of the negligent employee, okay, and the acts of a negligent employee become the negligence of the business, then this created a liability. Liability, again, for medical damages, pain and suffering, injuries, property damage, things like that. Here's what's so challenging about those two concepts of liability. When we're talking about contractual liability, debts and obligations, it's pretty easy to figure out what a business's contractual liabilities are. Add up the debts, right? Add up the accounts receivable or accounts payable. Fairly easy financial analysis to see what type of financial contractual liability, debt, obligations a business has. What type of liability does a business have for their own negligence? On any given day, it can be zero. On a bad day, it could be an untold sum in the multi-million dollars, right? You don't know when your employee is going to do something stupid and text while he's driving and plow into somebody on I-75. Now, you hope you take all the action as a business owner to make sure they don't. You're educating your employees. You're requiring safety checks. You're doing background checks. You're doing all those types of things. But certain of those things, perhaps to a certain extent, are out of your control, but yet as a business owner, you are still responsible for the acts of those employees. Yes?
Does negligence outrule unlimited liability?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Like if you're negligent and you have unlimited liability and basically do you still have liability, or like are you still responsible if you have all that, or no?
I mean, there are limits on the extent to which a company is liable in the sense that the person who is injured has to prove damage. Okay. They can't say, well, I was rear-ended and there's, minor damage to my car and I'm not injured and I would like $50 million. Yeah. I mean, they have to prove the extent of the liability that's been created. That burden of proof is on the plaintiff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not an unlimited cash cow. They do have that responsibility to prove, okay, my medical damages were X, my pain and suffering was X, my property damage was X. The challenging thing, though, about something like pain and suffering in a negligence analysis is that, that can be any number. I mean, when a jury's looking at it, if it's sympathetic plaintiff and they feel like this has really impacted their life in a very significant way, and you have a very sympathetic jury, a sympathetic jury might give them a lot of money for that. A less sympathetic jury might say, well, you know what, okay, let's pay for their medicals, let's pay for their lost wages, let's pay for surgery, that kind of thing. But this is not to be a lottery ticket. And that, my friend, is the beauty of a jury of your peers. It's who the 9 people who are sitting in the box that day, how they perceive it and how they think it. Did that answer your question, or was that very tangential?
That was good.
Okay, all right. But that probably went into torts a little bit, but I think it's good that we sort of laid the pattern for that, because that's going to come up in all of these different things. Okay, so understand those distinctions between liability, contractual versus negligence creating liability. The other thing that I want to note as a general concept is that there is no one business form that can protect a business from liability for all of its debts and obligations. Okay. There is no one business form. There's no magical formula that protects any business from any of its debts and obligations. At the end of the day, someone is going to be responsible for a business's debts and obligations. The question is who or what. In a partnership, we know that the partners are going to be liable. In an LLC, we know that the entity is going to be liable, that the individual owners are protected. Okay? But I again kind of want to reiterate, there's no one business form that wipes away and protects from all debts and obligations. Because think about it. What stability is there in the business world if there was? Why would you ever enter into a contract with an entity that was structured that way? your contract is worth